And today they're trying to wrap up the investigation at the unkept Red House on First Avenue. It stood on a block of tiny suburban homes, stood out like a sore thumb. Everybody knew that architect Rex lived there. He was crazy. He was wild. He was out of control. I'm going to run through the litany of things that people have said about him and the way he operated in and out of that house in Matzo Pizza Park. First off, there is the guy who lived right next door to him, who said that this guy would be digging up holes in his backyard.
When I was 18, 19 years old, I heard digging in the backyard next door. Now, I really wanted to go and check out what it was and look through the fence. The fence had little fake grass on it, but something stopped myself from doing it. I was nervous. I wasn't too sure what I was hearing at the time.
Okay, if that wasn't bad enough, he would burn his garbage on a regular basis in his yard at his home on First Avenue in Matzo Pizza Park.
He would burn his garbage, and I would smell it, and I would always wonder, I'm like, why is this guy burning his garbage again?
So what I did was I tapped into the brainless mindset of Justin, our handy-dandy producer who's available to sit in the morning, his executive producer. He obviously helps me put together this Rip and Read program, but he is a proud alumni member of Chappaqua, the whitest suburb in America where even the lawn jockeys are white, where rich is spelled with capitals. And let's face it, it's the home of Bill and Hillary and their love shack where even their black lab mysteriously died. Another friend of the Clintons who mysteriously died, and Justin is taking the coat of omerta on that. But he did explain to me the idiosyncrasies of neighborhoods, suburbs, townships, villages, and the strict code enforcement that they have, because any neighbor's violation could kill people's property values. So if you look at digging holes at 1 o'clock in the morning in your backyard, burning garbage, which is actually a crime in Nassau County, Nancy, who does the deep dive for the wrecking team of Sliwa and Sliwa against friends and foes alike. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Fess up if you mess up. And she first went to the village of Massapequa Park. They have resident services. The resident services department is the department through which most residents' complaints, questions, and concerns are handled. Residents may also report violations of any village ordinance or local law. Resident services staff investigates complaints and makes regular ride-throughs of the village to ensure compliance with residential ordinances. Really? There's not one complaint filed with the village of Massapequa Park. Now, are we to believe that the nosy neighbors of Massapequa Park, watching their property values plummet, were not taking advantage and complaining to the resident services department? Of course they were. But try to find a record of it. Justin, mysteriously, it's like it was etch-a-sketched away. What are you talking about? What complaints? I ask you again, Architect Rex, why was he an untouchable? Why was he protected by the powers that be? Now, you could say, well, that's the village of Massapequa Park. But wait a second, you go to Nassau, which has a unbelievable bureaucracy of agencies. They have a building department with inspections and inspectors, especially if any reports come their way of any building in Nassau County. Eventually, the inspectors will get out there. This guy was out there for more than a dozen years. Then they have code enforcement. You file a complaint of common violations, and they have a code enforcement officer who comes out and looks at the property. Apparently, that never occurred, or maybe it did occur, and when the reports were filed, they were etch-a-sketched away. So right now, to the village of Massapequa Park, you have to answer, and we're going to force you to answer, how come none of those complaints were ever filed on record? And in Nassau County, how come none of the complaints were ever never filed with the buildings department or code enforcement? Now, let me give you some of them, okay? We all know by now, you've seen the photos, You've had the drone photos from above the unkempt red house on First Avenue. I think everybody agrees it stood out like a sore thumb amongst those tiny suburban homes. Then you had, when described, a squat red 3-bedroom ranch home with a yard neighbors said often was strewn with cut trees and a broken lawnmower. Now, if that occurred in Chappaqua when you were growing up there, Justin, right away, code enforcement agencies would have been there, right? They probably would have sought foreclosure, take down the house. It's a blight, right? We do know that neighbors were fed up with the way that architect Rex kept his house. Now, are we to believe that they're fed up and that they didn't file any complaints with the Village of Massapequa Park or with the County of Nassau? Again, in a further deep dive by Nancy, my wife, the e-attorney, he had leaks in his roof. Instead of fixing the roof, he put this big metal plate up there. Neighbors were looking at this and shaking their heads and saying, "What the hell is this? This is like a hillbilly house. This is hillbilly hell." Are we to believe that there were no complaints? Again, the house looked like it was beaten up, something out of a horror movie, according to the neighbors. Are we to believe that none of the neighbors complained? And remember, I want to read to you. This is what people pay taxes for. Incredible in taxes out there in Nassau County. The highest property tax rates almost in the country, along with Suffolk County. Again, Resident Services Department, Village of Massapequa Park. The Resident Service Department is the department through which most residents' complaint, questions, and concerns are handled. Resident service staff investigate complaints and make regular ride-throughs of the village to ensure compliance with residential ordinances. One ride-through, Massapequa Park, on First Avenue, and you would have said, this building is filled with violations. Now, one report. And as Nancy explained to me, having grown up in Bohemia in Suffolk County, she said, when all else fails, you call the police. You call 911, and the police eventually come out, and they're going to end up writing a report, or they're going to end up dealing with it, or referring it to the appropriate agency in the county, the village, the borough, or the town. Here's another thing, Justin, you would like that they would never tolerate in Chappaqua. He had a big TV on the front porch like a hillbilly. Like a hillbilly in the Appalachians, like a hillbilly in the Ozark Mountains. This is architect Rex. He was always chopping wood in his garage and watching TV on the porch. What the hell is he chopping wood for? Has anybody asked that question? Right? You would have thought neighbors would have said, hey, it's kind of late, it's 10 o'clock at night. What's that screwball doing? He's chopping wood in the garage, and he's watching TV on his porch like a freaking hillbilly. If you looked at the records, though, of both the Village of Massapequa Park and Nassau County, there were no complaints or reports. Do we really believe that? Or do we believe that he was an untouchable, and every time a complaint came in, it mysteriously disappeared? Because architect Rex knew too much about too many people, their proclivities, their decadence, their debauchery, their actions that were probably similar to his when it came to bondage and whipping and all kinds of extreme methods of sexual encounters with young ladies and those who were prostitutes. According to another neighbor, there was always a mess of logs on the lawn mixed in with random stuff, garbage thrown all over the place. And you're telling me that there was no code enforcement by either Nassau County or the Village of Massapequa Park? Again, the home was in such disrepair, including the porch, looking unstable, that people would say, what's going on in that house? Now, Justin, this is what I would recommend. And Lou, you might be able to do this from the Rockaways, the Irish Riviera. Take Sunrise Highway out to the Massapequa Diner. I've got my best information there. The Yentas, they tell you everything. Oh, my God, you don't even have to ask them a question. It's sort of like Naomi. It's sort of like Sid's mom that he has on once a week from up in the Jewish Himalayas, the Catskills. She's nonstop, right? She airs everybody's dirty laundry. That's what the Yentas do there at the Massapequa Diner. How is it that I know all of this? And I'm a guy in the city of New York. And you're going to go to that press conference today, which is underway with the district attorney from Suffolk County, Tierney, Rodney Harrison, the police commissioner of Suffolk. No doubt you're going to have the Nassau County Police there, Nassau County officials there. You're going to have officials from the village of Massapequa Park. And none of the reporters are going to ask them the kind of simple questions I'm asking now. We will continue to do the deep dive. So far, Democrats and Republicans, officials, police officials, and others who should have been in the know, who should have been on top of this, instead of covering it up and engaging in this conspiracy, they view me as a hemorrhoid in a red beret, and they can't find enough preparation H in the world to smear on me and that I'll dry up and sort of blow away. Well, guess what, guys and gals? Whether you're my friends or my foes, we're coming after you. Me and Nancy Sliwa, the Sliwa Wrecking Team, because you're covering up and you're not answering questions that any common sense would have indicated there would have been hundreds, thousands of complaints against that property.